Well, hello and welcome to day 3 of our financial checkup seminar. And listen, if you have missed any session, you need to go back and listen again. As a matter of fact, even if you listened the first time, you need to go back and listen again. The Bible says that faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. And I'm telling you, I have been so richly blessed by the information that was shared on Monday and then again on yesterday. And so I am super excited about today's teaching as well. We're going to talk about, can I recover? And our speaker today is going to be very candid in the information that he will share with us. I know that if we would be truthful, if we would be honest with ourselves, many of us have been in those situations where it appeared that we would never come out of where we were. But some of us have living testimonies. As a matter of fact, our speaker today is going to share that he has a living testimony of how you come out. So I do want to answer the question, can I recover? The answer is yes. I was thinking about Saint Matthew 19, verse 26, and the Bible says, what seems impossible to you. And I want you to catch that. If you're in a situation today from a financial perspective and you cannot see your way out, I want you to stand on St. Matthew 19 and 26. And it says this, what seems impossible to you is never impossible to God. What seems impossible to you is never impossible to God. And our speaker today is going to share with us how we come out, how we recover from those bad situations, those bad circumstances, those bad decisions that we have made. I want to say hello to Tanya Miles, Shirley Miller. Good afternoon to you, Carolyn Banks, Peggy Spence, Karen Alford, one of our speakers on Monday. Good afternoon to you, Beverly Thompson. Also, say Maxine Colbert, and to a lot of you, I see the numbers, so I know we have a lot of people on today. If I missed your name as you scrolled by, welcome to day 3, Can I Recover? I also, thought about as we prepare for the teaching on today in, I think it's 1 Samuel 30, where David is in a situation and he asks God this question. He says, shall I pursue? And God says to him, pursue, which means to go after. So I'm saying to you to do, take the information that will be shared, go after coming out of debt, go after being debt free in 2023. God says to David, he says, pursue, so because you shall surely, as the word says, recover all. So God desires that we recover all. Our speaker today is Jerry McCoy. He has 25 years in banking and real estate. He has been a realtor, a mortgage lender, a mortgage processing manager, a banking center manager. He's an owner now of an independent life insurance agency. And then he served our country in the Marine Corps. So Jerry is well qualified to join us and to speak with us today. So Jerry, I invite you in now. Jerry McCoy, good afternoon to you, Jerry. Jerry, we're going to have to stop you because I know we chatted for a while and I'm not hearing you. So let's see what's going on with our sound. We lost your audio. That is amazing. We chatted now for about 30 minutes before we went live. So let's give him a moment. We're going to give him a moment to see what's going on with his audio. The thing I like about it's saying the mic is muted. So we'll check that for you, Jerry. And let's see if we can go back to you and see if you can join me now. Give us just a moment. But the thing I like about Jerry sharing with us, he said to me, he says, I've lived through this. I've come through all of these things. And so he's going to share a lot of personal information today on how to come out. So Jerry, are you good?
I think so. Can you guys hear me now?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Jay, for having me. First of all, I want to thank not only you, but also Pastor George and all the production team that work so diligent behind the scenes to make these things happen. We are so fortunate as a church and as a body of believers to be in such a place as New Life and CRCC. People just have no idea what a
Right.
benefit you are to the community and to
Thank
the
you so much.
individuals that participate along with us. So thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure is ours, Jerry.
Yes, ma'am. So what we're going to talk about today is recovery. Oftentimes people think, "Oh gosh, I've got myself so deep in the hole. Will I ever be able to recover?" The answer is yes, you can. You can. And I'll tell you why I know that, because I lived through it. Okay. And I noticed some names on this chat. Of course, I've been in the business of real estate and mortgage lending for a very, very long time, insurance. And I noticed some of the names on the chat, people that I have had the pleasure to work with in the past. Now, you wouldn't
Great.
know that because it's called the fiduciary responsibility to be private, right? Just like
Hmm.
much like pastors or doctors have that fiduciary responsibility to keep client and patient confidentiality. You'll never know who those people are, but they know who they are.
Hmm.
So they've been able to successfully overcome as well. And so I thank God for that ability to recover. And God promised, hey, He will not only allow us to recover, but He'll make us stronger as a
Right.
result of that recovery. So
Right.
we're going to talk about some practical things that you can do today to recover.
Okay. Well, it's in your court.
Okay. So one of the main topics that people struggle with, or not topics, but actually life events that people struggle with, is bad credit.
Mhm.
Okay. Bad credit. I mean, it's no secret that credit is a very, very instrumental part of the way we do business in America. And not only just America, but worldwide. You'll be surprised to know that there are more than just the three major credit bureaus around the world, but in America, we use three as a primary source of information that houses our credit information. And most people will recognize Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion as those repositories of credit information, right? And so
Hmm.
now a credit score, it's important to know what, first of all, what a credit score is and how it can impact your ability to get credit. Okay. Now it's nice to be able to buy things on cash, and I'm confessing every day that God gives me the ability to not to have to use any credit at all. I mean, that's
Hmm.
ultimately our goal, to owe no man anything but to love him, right? But
Right.
until we get to the place, God has also created a system of credit. Okay. I don't believe it's the devil that did
Right.
this. I believe it's almost like a maturation mechanism that God uses and teaches us with to teach us broader lessons about life itself.
Right.
And so that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day, though. So, but today we're going to keep it focused and we're going to keep it very streamlined. A credit score, according to depending on the credit bureau that you're looking at, your score can literally range from 300 to 850.
Okay.
Okay, 300 to 850. Now you are looking at a person, and I'm not ashamed to say it, had a credit score of just over 100.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? A credit score of
Wow.
just over 400. Now, did I magically wake up and have a credit score of 400? Absolutely not. It was a culmination of improper decisions that I made. And most of those decisions I made consciously and willingly. And I suffered the consequences of it. And so you're talking about things like judgment, you're talking things, repossessions, even. I've heard
Wow.
pastors say many times from the stage, yeah, you can recover repossession. God
Wow.
made other cars, He made the ability to recover from these things. And I'm going to show you some practical ways today how you can recover from even bad credit, things like judgments, bankruptcies. One of the fears that people have when it comes to their credit is perhaps they did have a bankruptcy, okay, and they think their life is over after that point. Nothing can be further from the truth.
Wow.
Nothing. With a systematic approach to recovering your credit even after a bankruptcy, and that I can't think of any more of a major negative credit incident than a bankruptcy. Can you?
No.
But life after bankruptcy really does exist, and we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, good deal. So now let's take a closer look, if you will. We're just going to jog down just a little bit. First of all, I want people to fully understand how the credit score works. Reporting of the credit can be very useful in how you are going about to rebuild your credit. Now, remember that our focus today is rebuilding. So we're
Right.
under the assumption that we have something to rebuild from, that we're in a negative situation at this moment. Now, if your credit is already at 700 or above, maybe this segment is not exactly for you. But I think if you continue to listen, you may even find something that's beneficial for you as well. So
I
please
think so,
don't tune
Jerry.
out.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, let's not do that because even if you're at 700, that's not a perfect score. You said you can get to 850. So even if you are in the
Absolutely.
700s, then you want to keep working at this credit score until you can get it to over 800 and then at that perfect score of 850. I mean, if it's out there, go for it.
That's right. And I'm going to show you a graph. If you guys stick around towards the end of this segment, I'm going to show you a real life graph of my credit score that I pulled just this morning. Okay, so this isn't some historical data from years past or months ago. We're going to pull that my credit score from this morning, and we're going to review it, and we're going to review it on a timeline. And I want you guys to see how some of the things that we're going to talk about today, such as credit utilization, such as on time payments, how those things can month to month even impact your credit score. So it's important to know what elements go into making up a credit score. And we're going to talk about those things in a very methodical way today. Now, I'm not going to bore you, or I won't say bore you, but I'm not going to overwhelm you with any charts, a bunch of financial data. That's not what this is about today. This is a heart to heart, so to speak, of how you can recover from what you may think is as an impossible situation. Trust me, you are not alone, and other people have done it, and so can you. And I'm going to show you how
Great.
to do that today, okay?
We're
Now,
ready.
finding your score. Um, some people struggle with finding their score, what score to use, which one is important. Well, it really depends. Again, I'll mention that there are three major credit bureaus in the United States: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, right? Now, one thing you
Right.
want to keep in mind, people, and don't lose sight of this: credit bureaus are for profit businesses. They are not charity organizations. They are simply repositories of the information that your creditor, your employer, your potential employer can access and use to form an opinion about you. And so these credit bureaus put together all of this information that's reported to them, and they put it together in a understandable way that it can be used by businesses and creditors that you're attempting to borrow or to do business with. So it's important to know, first of all, where to find your score, where to find your report, and to be able to interpret that report in such a way that you can make sense of it and use it for your benefit. So, finding your score each year, Pastor, every American has a right to an annual credit report, and it's very easy to obtain. You'll simply go to annualcreditreport.com. And there you can get a credit report from each of the three major bureaus. Now that's free. You don't have to pay anything for it. Now, if
Okay.
you are going through, yes, ma'am, it is absolutely free and available to anyone at any time. Now, you can also there's also a toll free number. I'll see if I can get that posted in the chat later. Call, but I do recommend that you simply go online and request it. It's very, very easy to do. Okay. So Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, those are the companies. Remember, these are the for-profit businesses that house your credit information. Okay. Now, as you're going through the process of restoration, restoring your credit, some parts of restoration include repair. First of all, discovery. I'll back up just a moment. You have to first discover what's on your credit report that may be negatively impacting your score. And that's where that annual credit report, free report, can come in handy. You'll be able to see side by side what each of the three major credit bureaus reporting on you. Okay.
Okay.
Now, sometimes you'll find that you may have experience, for instance, that reports a debt that TransUnion doesn't have. And you're like, well,
Wow.
why is that? Well, it's possible that that creditor only reports to Experian and or instead of TransUnion, or they do have
Okay.
the right to report to all three. Now, keep in mind, these again are for profit businesses. So, whenever a creditor reports something to these agencies, they have to pay a fee to the credit agency. So, that's how they make their money. They make their money through fees that the creditors them to house this information and put it together in usable form.
Mm-hmm.
So again, these are for-profit businesses. You want to understand that these are not charity organizations, and so they are there to do business. So if you find that there's something faulty on your credit report, you don't have to beg and plead with them to get it corrected. These are for-profit businesses. They're designed and they're mandated by Congress even through the Federal Reporting Act to handle certain things and certain inquiries in a timely and efficient manner as a
That's
course of
good.
doing business. Yes,
So
ma'am. So we
I
want
saw one of
to,
the questions, Jerry, that we got was, can you challenge your credit score? So I guess the answer to that would be yes, based on what you just said, correct? Are you able
absolutely
to
you can
challenge?
challenge your. Absolutely, you can. Now, keep in mind, like just like what I just said, these are for-profit businesses, and they're just simply in the business of housing and putting together information that makes sense to them or to someone who's going to be using this information on their behalf. So they don't really care one way or the other if it's true or not. If you can provide
Right,
evidence that it's true or false, then that's what they have to act upon. Okay.
right,
See, a lot of times we get emotional about credit. We get emotional about things that may have happened to us in the past that brought about these bad credit situations. But keep in mind, folks, these are sanitized businesses. They don't care one way or the other. They're just doing business. So, yes,
right.
indeed, you can challenge your credit score. I did it many times over the years.
Wow.
So that's a
Okay.
great question. So now let's first talk about establishing credit. The proper way to establish a credit. Now, again, let's go back to our main subject. We're talking about recovery, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we want to talk about establishing credit after something major went wrong. Okay. Now, I said at the beginning of the segment that I had a credit over 400, and at the time, Pastor Jay, I'll be honest with you. I didn't really care. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care because I was mostly cash for everything anyway. Young man
Oh,
making
wow.
a boatload of money, didn't really care about keeping things in order, was more intent on having fun than taking care of future needs, right? And so those are some
Right.
of the bad decisions that got me in trouble. Okay. So if you're in that same position, know that there is hope and you can recover from even those really bad decisions. Okay. Now, there are some decisions that were made for me, things that happened that actually had no control over. But the culmination of my own irresponsibility, along with some of life's hard lessons, combined to get me into in that situation. Okay, so and then of course I met my wife, right? And Pastor Jay and I were talking before the segment about how God created all these good things, right? The sun, the moon, the stars, the sky. And then he made man that to man.
That's not
Now,
good.
look, man, it's not good for man to be alone, right? Now, he didn't
Yes.
say that about the fishes or anything else. He said it about man. So we know that the woman complements the man. I
Right.
believe that strongly. I believe that very, very strongly. Men and women are designed differently. We're built differently, and we bring different talents and skills to the table. And without a woman, a man is not balanced, and vice versa. But that's again a story for another day. We're talking about restoration and credit repair, and that there is life after bad credit. There really is. And so, what I had to determine at that point, after finding myself with I believe it was just like 409 or 410 or something like that credit score. And I was about to get married to my wife. And I'm like, Lord, I cannot go into this marriage doing this. It wouldn't be fair to her, right? It wouldn't be fair to my spouse. And it was just around that time that I was introduced to New Life in the Faith Ministries. So that would
Wow.
have been right around 1996, right?
Hmm.
Grace and I got married in 97, and we decided to wait till we got married, got back from our honeymoon to join the church. But I was actually introduced to the church in 1996 by a very nice down there in Tuscaloosa who was traveling back and forth to the ministry. So we
Wow.
decided that we were going to join Life in the Faith Ministries. And I tell you guys, that was probably the best decision of my life.
Oh,
Okay. Now, I haven't always seen eye to eye with
right.
anybody on every subject, pastors included, right? But the
Right.
overall blessing that my church has provided to me was incredibly instrumental in my ability to overcome where I was at that time. Okay,
It's
so I,
good.
I don't want you to underestimate or diminish the importance of good spiritual teaching and foundational teaching. Remember, the Bible is a very practical book, right?
That's right.
There's
That's
a
right.
lesson for everything that we can possibly imagine in our lives contained within the covers of that book that we call the Holy Book. And so,
Right.
if we just glean things from there from time to time, I guarantee you we will be in a better place than we are now. But one of the lessons that the pastor taught very, very early on his ministry was the concept, and he still does, obviously, right? The concept of
Right.
what seed time and
Time.
harvest, right?
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter the type of seed you're planting seed, you're going to get a corresponding harvest. So that I
Right.
was planting prior to that time was bad seed. Okay,
Right.
it was behavior that will only lead to the cultivation of bad credit rating. Okay, so once I began to sit under the teaching and to really take it serious, one thing people need to understand, and I'm sure they do, just like I did, information is really readily available. All of this information that I'm talking about today, that you heard from Ms. Lynn the previous day, that you heard from Ms. Karen the other day, all of this information is out there. It's practical
Right.
knowledge, right?
Right.
It's public knowledge. But the key
Hosea 4 and
is,
6, Jerry. Hosea 4
oh,
and 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
for lack of knowledge. And not only that, Pastor Dave, once you get the knowledge, you can implement it. You
Do
can't
something
take a
with it.
seed in your hand and
Right.
hold it and expect it to cultivate.
Right.
So I had to do something. I had to first sit down with my credit report, which is the worst thing in the world a person with bad credit wants to do. No one with bad
Right.
credit really wants to look at it. But
Right.
I forced myself to get all three of my credit reports. I lined them up side by side. I compared all of the entries that were on there. And here's how I began to tackle that debt and get myself out of trouble. Okay. Some people refer to this method of debt cancellation as the avalanche method, where you take your credit card, say you got a bunch of credit cards, for instance, or any debt that carries a higher interest rate. You tackle that debt first,
Right.
okay? Because that's the one that's really costing you the most money.
Right.
If you only have an infinite amount or a finite amount of money coming in each month and you're spending a disproportionate amount of it on use of that credit, then you're really not doing yourself any favors.
Right.
So you want to make sure you retire that debt first. Now,
Right.
sometimes that's so if that's not possible, what you'll do then is you'll look at your debts. Let's say you got a debt for $500 and you got a debt for $1,000 and you got a debt for $10,000. Well, let's tackle the $500 debt first. Why don't we do
Right.
that? And you know what?
Yes.
That's once you accomplish it and conquered the world, and then from that point
Mm-hmm.
you can move on with confidence and more encouragement to get to that $1,000 debt.
Right.
Right? And so that's what we
Right.
did. That's what I did. Now, I'm just going to be conservative in giving you. But I was well over $150,000 in that project that I needed to do. Okay,
Right.
as far as personal debt,
Wow.
that may seem like a small number to some, and it may seem like a huge number to others. But the point is that was my reality at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But the
And now,
systematic
Jerry,
approach I took.
you're not talking about mortgage debt. You're just talking about that
Oh
personal
no,
debt that, yeah.
no, this is personal debt, Pastor Jay. This is personal debt. This is taxes.
Wow.
This is repossessions. These are credit
Wow.
card debts. These are other debts outside of a mortgage. Okay, and these are things that were preventing me from getting a mortgage, right?
Right. Right.
And so that was my central goals. And just to digress for just a moment, one of the reasons I decided to get into real estate many years ago is I did an exhaustive self-study on the housing disparities and the disparities in wealth distribution in this country. And one of the major themes, or the major theme that you'll find in terms of the disparity of household income, is that of home ownership or non-home ownership. Okay. Now, some of these things were weighted against us very heavily. This country made it extremely difficult for families to obtain mortgages. And see,
Yes.
mortgages is like a mortgage is almost like a financial instrument that you can use to tap into once the value of property increases versus the amount of debt you owe against that decreases. The difference
Right.
between what you owe and what it's worth is called what? It's called equity, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
the so-called larger majority society had been using equity for years to send their kids to school, to
Right.
start businesses, to
Right.
retire debt, to make
Right.
investments in stock markets and other financial instruments, all the things collectively that help to garner their huge amount of wealth in this country. Now, we're not even going to
Mm-hmm.
go back as far as slavery. We all know how that impacted the accumulation of wealth, not only in the South, but throughout the country. But we're talking about home ownership and how that impacted. And just briefly, I only mentioned that story to tell you that that was one of my goals when I got to the mortgage business, was to help do my part to help increase home ownership rates in America, or in my sphere of influence anyway, because I knew and I know that that is a large source of wealth in this country.
Right.
And they know it too. So anything
Yes.
they can do to help you diminish those opportunities, they're going to do it.
Right.
Yeah, so we want to make sure we stay focused on the prize. So whatever your goal is, whatever your aim is, whatever your desire is to effectively get out of debt or recover from bad credit, then let that be your goal. Let that be
Right.
your own personal motivation. I'm just sharing with me, or sharing with you was my driving force at that time. Obviously I wanted better credits too, but I had goals in mind. Okay.
Right.
So this morning, I pulled my credit. I'm not sure how much time we have. I know these segments go by so incredibly fast.
They
Once,
do, and we've got quite a few questions on the floor too. But I want you to put up your score, Jerry. I want you to show that slide.
okay, let's see. Give me just a second, Pastor Jay. Let me go down to.
So we're
Let's see
talking,
where
he
it is.
shared with us, he came from 400 over $150,000 in personal debt. And here he posts this morning a credit score of 836, exceptional. So can I recover? This is a man that is showing us, yes, you can go from a credit score of 400 to 836. And Jerry, the perfect score is 850. So he has almost a nearly perfect score. That is outstanding, Jerry. That is excellent.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. And again, guys, the way that I got there, there's no magic pill. There's no secret. Again, all this information is public knowledge. It's really about implementation. It's really
Right.
about taking that hard, making that initial hard decision to look at it. Just look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't be afraid of it, because fear, what? Fear torment, right? And so that anxiety
Right.
you get when you start thinking about your credit, or you need to do something that's going to involve your credit. I mean, you just go and you break out into a cold sweat. That's what I used
Right.
to do
Yeah.
until I confronted the monster. Okay. But
Yeah.
when I
You
did that, you know what? I began to realize, hey, this is not so bad. This is actually doable. And very
yes.
systematic approach, what some refer to as the avalanche method of retiring that debt. It took me several months to do that. It took me over 2 years to do that. Well, over 2 years, closer to three. But you know what? I did it.
Right.
And I'm no different than you are, right?
Right.
I don't have
Right.
any special abilities or God grace. See? So
Right.
yes, it is doable, Pastor Jay. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you, Jerry. I know from whence you come, and so I'm just I'm just elated to have you sharing with us today. Now, look, let's go back and get a couple of these questions. We had one from Theresa Thomas a while back, and so if we could get that question up from our production team, let's go back to Theresa Thomas. Somebody said, how long did it take,
Okay.
Jerry? Okay, got it. 2 to 3 years. So it's doable. That's that. Yeah, 2 or 3 years. It's doable. And it may take you less, it may take you more. You may not even be working from $150,000. So, but the point is that it's possible. Remember, we're using Matthew 19:26 for this segment. What seems impossible to you is never impossible to God. So, is that question up? Can we get that question? Okay, Jerry, what are the rating categories?
Okay. Well, I'm not exactly sure what they mean by rating categories. The credit bureaus use credit scoring models. Now, they all use various models. Some will use the FICO scoring model. Experian and Equifax have a different scoring model. That's why you'll probably notice, if you compare your credits reports side by side, you may have the same creditor. Say you got GMAC as a creditor, and the score on Equifax could be, say, 780. The score on TransUnion may be 750, and maybe something different on TransUnion. And that's because they use different scoring models in order to come up with that ultimate number. Now, it's important to note also that if you're seeking a mortgage, mortgage lenders use even a more comprehensive credit report. They could RMCR or a residential mortgage credit report. It's going to have even more information on there regarding your credit past. So you definitely want to be aware of that as well. But
Oh,
I hope that answered the question. If not, they can
well,
elaborate.
let me ask you this, and this may not be where they were going, but this is what I thought about when I saw the question. We saw that 836 was exceptional, 850 was a perfect score. So tell us, what is a good credit score? What is a great credit score? And what score is it that you start going negative, that negatively impacts you? Let's look at it from that perspective.
That's a good question. So guys, if you're between 300 and say 480, you're really in the bad category there. So 300 to 480 is really bad. 480 to maybe 580 is it's okay. I wouldn't call it good at that point. It's just slightly better than bad because most creditors are going to negatively impact you. If they do allow you to get credit from them, you're going to realize it that in the form of higher interest rates and more restrictive terms in that credit that you obtain. So once you get to the 620 category and above to maybe 720 or somewhere along in that range, then you're really in the excellent category. And then of course you've seen just based on the brief chart that I showed, you get above the 800 category, you're really in what they refer to as the exceptional range. Not that I think I'm exceptional, but God,
No, you are
but God saw
exceptional.
fit.
The world
But
said
God
you
saw
are exceptional.
Thank you, Pastor Jay. Thank you. But that's kind
Okay.
of where they rate you there. So now, for most people who are looking to get credit, now depending on the type of credit they're looking to get, that baseline for what's acceptable to that lender could be different. For instance, if you're looking to get a mortgage, most mortgage lenders these days are looking for a credit score of 620 or above. Okay. Now, if you're looking for a consumable item like a car, then it may be a lower threshold, say
Right,
580 to 620. But guess what? That 580 to 620 is going to cost you big in
right.
the form of higher interest rates and less attractive terms. So, a positive plus side to having good credit, and that is you pay less for the money you borrow.
Okay. Now, people are asking about this annualcreditreport.com. Can you just kind of remind them to be sure they are on the actual site and then not on a lookalike that may try to steal information? Can you speak to that?
Yes, ma'am. You want to go to annualcreditreport.com. That is an official website that's set up to get your credit report at least once a year. If you're unsure and if you're still leery about that, because I know with all the online scamming that's going on, man, they make these sites look so much like the official real
They
site
do.
that there's any way that you can distinguish it, right?
Right,
Hardly any way. So if you're one of those people, which I'm kind of almost in that category myself, I'd rather contact the credit bureau myself, pay the small fee for the credit report, and move on with my life without that
right.
consternation or fear. So that's definitely something that I would consider if I were you, just going directly to the credit bureau themselves and asking for or paying for, if necessary, a copy of your credit report.
Okay.
So great
Jerry, we've
question.
got a couple more questions. I know I want to get to. So, production team, if you'll help me get to that next question. And then I think it's the one after that one that I really want you to touch on before we shut this down. We've got about 5 minutes left. So, can you speak on the 2021 Congress
Mhm.
investigation on the credit reporting agencies not handling consumer disputes?
Oh gosh, my personal feelings about the credit reporting agencies would take up a 6 hour segment, Pastor Jay, literally a 6 hour segment. While I'm telling you, I'm not a huge fan. I'll be quite frank. I'm not a huge fan of any of these credit reporting agencies. Now, I personally think there has been a bit of bias in the way credit gets reported in this country, just like just about any other financial institution in this land has had some type of discriminatory slant aimed towards disenfranchising people as a whole. But that being another story, of course, just like the credit or the breach of security that I think it was Equifax faced back in 2017, where millions of people's private information was exposed. These guys, it's incumbent upon them to protect your information. It's incumbent upon them to do what the law requires them to do. Remember, these are for-profit businesses. I've
Right.
probably said that about 15 times. These companies are supposed to follow the law. And if they
Right.
don't, then they need to be held accountable through that Fair Credit Reporting Act or any other legislation that comes about to help make sure that they're harnessed and that they do the rules.
Okay. We're going to put up another question. This was a question by Carolyn Atkins. And she said, what is your understanding about agencies like Freedom Debt? They consolidate your bills and negotiate with your creditors for a lower payoff. And they're just one of the ones, but I wanted you to talk about that, using these companies to assist you in consolidating bills and negotiating with creditors.
Well, all credit repair companies are bad, but I will
Well,
categorically them are. Okay. There are some that are genuinely concerned about helping your situation. But keep in mind, even these businesses are for profit businesses. They're in there to
right,
make money, whether you get
right.
service or not. So, what they're going to essentially do for you is something that you can for yourself for free
Yes,
at any time. Okay. And I
right,
want you to understand that if you don't understand anything else, you can do this yourself. I didn't get involved with
right,
any credit repair agencies. Although, as you know, they were around then just like they are now. They're going strong. All you got to do is stop at a corner, especially in certain communities, and see the sign, free credit or credit repair, call 800, so on and so forth. And then you call them, right, and they charging you $500-$600 for a
right.
so clicks to your credit. One of the first things I said when I got on this airwaves today is there is no magic pill.
Right.
Okay, so keep that in mind whenever you're dealing with any credit repair agency.
Right. Yeah, I wanted you to get there, Jerry, because I hear those all the time. I hear them advertised, and I'm like you. I don't support those. I don't advocate them, and I tell people, just like you said, you can do that yourself, and you can save that $500 or $600 that they're going to charge you in order to do this for you. You can come out by yourself. You said that you came out of $150,000 debt and went from a 400 plus credit score to now over 800, with these methods, that avalanche method. And that's what I advocate. Of course, Jerry, you can speak to this, but I do know that sometimes it is necessary that you consolidate your bills. It may be necessary to take out a loan where you consolidate so that you have this one bill. But if you're going to do that, you've got to cut up
Mhm.
those credit cards. You still have to go back to day one where we talked about discipline. Day two was still about discipline. And here we are, Jerry, on day three, and we are still that word discipline. Would you come out of or get in better shape financially by being disciplined? We're going to hear that throughout this process.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. And that is a very, very point. Now, consolidating debt can be a very smart financial move for many people. But as Pastor Jay just alluded to, it doesn't do you any good, people, to consolidate your 10 credit cards and then you for more.
Right,
Actually hurting yourself and you're going backwards instead of forwards. So
right,
the discipline Mr. Jay is talking about is the discipline to consolidate those debts, get one bill, and instead of 4 or 5 or 6 bills, focus your attention on the retirement of that debt that you just consolidated into. And then once that's tackled or diminished significantly, then you can potentially talk about going out and getting other lines of credit as the need arises. But the overarching theme that we need to understand is we have to live within our means. We
Right.
have to live within our means, especially when we're trying to come out of debt or restore a good credit rating. Very, very
Right.
important that we live within our means.
We're going to take one
Yes,
more
ma'am. So
question, Jerry. I saw that, and then we're going to end because we're at our point. It's 46 minutes. So the very last question is from Karen Alford, and it says, what do you feel was the most impact on raising your credit score? What was the most impact on raising your credit score?
okay. Well, that's a very good question, Ms. Offer. Thank you so much for asking it. The biggest impact is simply this: paying your bills on time. Now, this is one of the things that I got extremely embedded into me with the ministry, for instance. One of the things that Pastor Jay, I've heard her say over the years,
Yes,
we've paid our bills on time or before time.
that's
And
exactly
that
right.
is probably the biggest element in raising and improving your credit rating. Because remember, these are hard numbers we're talking about. They're
Right.
just looking at statistical numbers when they pull your credit report. So if they see you with this credit item and all it has is 30-day late, 60-day late, 90-day late, 120-day late, how do you think that's going to impact your score? That's the
Right.
major element right there, pay time.
Right.
And then, of course, you drop down to other things like, credit utilization. How much of the credit I have available to me, am I actually using? What does that threshold look like? Ideally, you want to keep your credit threshold to around 30% of your available credit or less, even. Okay, there's no prize. You don't get a prize for carrying a lot of debt. That's not the point. The point is paying things on time.
Okay.
So
Thank you so
great,
much,
great
Jerry.
question, Pastor.
Yeah, so I just got from our production team, we've got one question and it's an easy one. So we'll take that one and then we are going to end the session after that. So we'll put that question up. Does having several credit cards with no balance hurt your credit score?
Well, that's another fantastic question. And in some cases, it can, believe it or not. So, and here's where that word discipline is really going to come into play. And you really want to be an experienced credit user, if you will, to make sure that you're doing things the right way. If you have a lot of open credit cards, for instance, sometimes those open credit cards with no balances, suddenly you'll check your score, you'll check your report one month and they closed that account because of
Mhm.
non-utilization. So now all of a sudden, you don't have the same credit utilization percentage, or you don't have the same length of credit history. So that could be a negative impact on you. Now, ideally, you want to at least use each one of your credit cards, if you have them available, for small purposes that you pay off each and every month. Now, sometimes you have to, unfortunately, make a large purchase, but we're talking about utilization to help build your score. So, for instance, if you do have 2 or 3 credit cards, use them. It's okay to use them, but as long as you, again, remember this theme, live within your means.
Right.
So when that bill comes on or before time, remember, pay it off.
Right. Jerry, this has been so helpful. I thoroughly enjoyed this session as I have all of the sessions this week. So thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of our financial checkup seminar. And so Jerry has made it very clear. He gave us practical examples on how we can do this. And then he's a living testimony of what he shared today. Can I recover? He has answered this resoundingly, yes, you can recover, regardless of what it is, whether it's repossessions, whether it's too much credit, whether it's bad credit. His answer has been yes, you can recover. So I want to say, Jerry, thank you so much for joining us. And I encourage you all to join us on tomorrow because we'll talk about home ownership. Please make sure that you join us on tomorrow. Let's finish out the week with Thursday, and then again, you're going to learn a lot on Friday as well. There are some of us have never thought about investing, and so we have money sitting in accounts. We got money as they asked us on Monday, but then now, is that money working for you? That's what we're going to talk about on Friday. Now, I do want to encourage you, for those of you who are local, even if you're not local, and you can contact us and we will be happy to get this information out to you. But our bookstore will be open in the lobby on Sunday. We have purchased books and other material to just assist you in getting there, giving you more. One of the things that we have is a scripture confessions. This is going to be available, scripture confessions for finances. This will be available in the lobby, of course, for purchase, but it will be in the lobby on Sunday. And who knows, Sunday, for those of you who attend in person, we probably will do some giveaways. I'm going to go ahead and say that we'll do some giveaways on Sunday of some of this, but the rest of it will be available in the lobby. This one is called Think and Grow Rich. It will be available in the bookstore. And then Who, Not How. This is a formula to achieve bigger goals through accelerating teamwork, available on Sunday. This one just came in, Why the Rich Are Getting Richer. So we have this book, and then I do like this by Tiffany, Get Good with Money. So we've tried to get material to assist you in becoming totally debt free. I've been saying debt free in 2023. I believe it is the will of God that we are debt free in 2023. So thank you again for joining us. Remember, tonight at 6:30 p.m., we will air a message from our pastor who's going to talk to us, give us the biblical perspective of financial freedom. That will air tonight at 6:30 p.m. And then, of course, join us again tomorrow, Thursday, 12 o'clock noon, Friday, 12 o'clock noon. Share these sessions with others, and we hope that you are being flooded with information. God bless you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.